Y'all meet it.
Mine is.
Yeah, she's been texting me if we got to call her. So I'll look out for her. Let me check with her.
Good morning. It is April 18th. We're in the Commissioners' Chambers. We have a full slate of commissioners. We have our administrator, and Mr. Davidson's here, and our clerk of the board. And at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the March 28th and April 4th Commissioner meeting minutes. Is there any corrections, additions, or?
No.
Okay. Next, we'll move down to the approval of vouchers. I believe we have one today.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 3 as presented.
No, it's the vouchers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we are checking on that. We had one voucher last week, one voucher this week. We should have two this week, so we're checking on that right now.
So move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $622,667.29 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And next, we'll move down to the approval of the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda today.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 3 as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to second, but I'd like to have discussion on item 1. It doesn't necessitate separating, but normally we don't discuss consent items. So if it's okay with the board, I'll second with the option to discuss item 1 briefly.
We have a motion and a second for the 3 items on the consent agenda with discussion on item 1. Go ahead, Mr. Peck.
So I read with some concern the hourly rates for the services to be provided by this plumbing contractor for the Juvenile Justice Center. In some cases, it looked like it was $300 to $600 per hour. I realize it's a commercial or a government facility, but if that's truly market rate, then we are all in the wrong business. That's just my comment. I was just shocked by the hourly rates. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, there's been a motion and a second for the 3 items on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Moves us down to public comment. Is there anybody on the phone or anybody for public comment? I believe we have 3 or 4 comments to be made. Anybody in the room for public comment? Please come forward.
Morning, everybody. My name is Michael Lips. I farm between North Cooley and North Dayton Roads, and I've lived there all my life. My dad's lived there all his life, and truly I say this to you, these are the worst, these gravel roads I've ever been, that I've ever seen, and that my dad's ever seen in our lives. We've seen them under different management and different quality shapes, and this is the worst. So this magnesium chloride that we're talking about today, well, first I'd like to start off by saying I appreciate the efforts of whoever organized this so the public comment was before the vote. I really appreciate your efforts, whoever set that up. That's the way it should be every week. But anyway, as to the magnesium chloride that is being put on these roads, I've never seen them in worse shape in my life. And I have some pictures. Would you like them now, or does it matter?
Sure.
I'll pass them.
Thank you.
So those pictures, as you're looking through, are some of the conditions of the roads that we're dealing with. This stuff, if nobody knows, this magnesium chloride is a salt that essentially binds the fines up in the road, the dirt particles, which, by the way, a gravel road should not have near what it has, but that's a different issue. Binds it up into a concrete-like substance that only softens up when it gets wet. And so when it's hard, we deal with issues of potholes, washboards, ruts, and it's extremely rough. I've had toolboxes come open, coming up to stop signs, especially on North Dayton. Essentially, it's ruined our roads. They're trying to turn a dirt road into pavement, it seems, and it's not working for them. So that's what happens when it's dry, and I'll get to one more issue, the most important issue that I have, what happens when it's dry in just a minute. But what happens when it's wet is it gets really soft and slick, and so basically it's a mud hole if there wasn't enough gravel on the road to start with, which I haven't seen a gravel truck on our roads in the last 15 years or more, except for when there was some sinkholes, some washouts in our road because of this stuff, and I'll explain how that worked. So basically we're dealing with dirt roads. If I took a sample from the surface of the road, we would have more dirt in that sample than gravel, guaranteed. And so when this stuff is wet, it's soft, it moves around, you get ruts in it, it'll just kind of squish out and get all over everything. It gets on your pickups, on your tractors, you have to go wash them all off when you get home. And, a pickup doesn't take that long to wash, but if you take a tractor up through there and you've got a piece of equipment, it takes you a long time to get all that stuff cleaned off. And the reason you have to clean it off is because it's corrosive. So magnesium chloride is a salt. It's the same thing you'll put on for de-icer or to melt snow off. And it's a salt, and we all know that's corrosive, right? And magnesium chloride specifically, if you look on the label of any bag of it that you would put down for snow control, it'll say do not put on concrete sidewalks. And so I'll get to why that's important in just a second. But when you're driving down these roads and this magnesium chloride dirt solution gets stuck all on your vehicles, first of all, it rusts out your vehicles. All my running boards, all the underside of my pickups, my hitches get rusted in. I have a lot of issues there. Is that my 3 minutes?
That's 3 minutes,
Okay.
but we have 2 public comment periods.
Can
So
I
if
just
you
have like 10 more seconds?
Just wrap up, please.
Okay, for the homeowners, please push for putting gravel on and getting it paved. Do not push for this stuff. For the county works department, I ask you one thing. Put yourself in our position and look and see what we have to deal with on a daily basis, what we have to drive through no matter what the situation. And I tell you this, whether we know it or not, whether we admit it or not, we will treat these roads with the same level of respect that the county treats them. Now that statement in itself is harmless, but if that statement troubles you, there lies the problem. For the commissioners, please, one of 3 things. Please vote either to pave these roads, put gravel instead of this magnesium chloride, don't allocate for both, or vote it completely down and don't provide any funds.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I gave a month ago a request for the Public Works Department, but I did it through the administrator's office because I wasn't sure if all the information I needed came from one department. They inadvertently didn't understand it was sent to the planning department. They called me, apologized, so they were reissuing it to the Public Works. That was 2 weeks ago. I have yet to even receive an acknowledgement letter from the Public Works Department. Nothing. And this is information that Mr. Erdman came to this microphone and touted as to why they were requiring farmers to get temporary, all of a sudden I can't think of the word.
Access?
Well, permits, thank you. Temporary permits to go onto their own farm, to farm their ground, or a concrete pad to enter their farm. And yet we still have not received the information. I don't know if my commissioners can put a fire under them. I don't know if I have to file a suit to get that information. Whatever step I need to take, this is information that he is using to require these permits and then to ask for a raise in those permits, and yet I still haven't gotten that information. So Commissioner Mullen, you're my commissioner. I know you'll get in there and put a fire under them. I hope that all of you will. So thank you.
Thank you. If you have public comment, just come forward.
Hi, my name is Jason McGarry, and I live on Dayton Road. I am for the magnesium chloride that is applied to Dayton Road. I quickly reached out to some of my neighbors that live on Dayton Road, and out of all of us, there was only one that is imposed of putting chloride down. It can create a mess within 24 hours, of application. And with the first rain of the fall, it does create a little bit of a mess. If you stay off of it, or if you drive your tractors, pickups, and other equipment at a slower rate of speed down Dayton Road for the first 24 hours after it's applied or after the rain, you typically don't have this problem. On Dayton Road, we have a speeding problem. People drive 50, 60, 70 miles an hour down the road, and when you're going at that speed, it is hard to stop on any surface that is wet. Like I said, I've polled those that live on Dayton Road, and all except for one are for the magnesium chloride on Dayton Road. It creates somewhat of a safety problem with the dust, people driving 60 miles an hour, and when you have opposing traffic. And being someone who lives on Dayton Road, the magnesium chloride helps to bind, like Mr. Lips was saying, helps to bind that magnesium chloride, that dust together, so you don't have that. But I have kids constantly going in and out of Dayton Road, playing in my backyard, near it, and I like it from a safety concern for my kids. Not only that, but I also enjoy the dust-free environment. I do prefer to have it paved. I mean, there's no secret there. We'd all like to pave road. But yet, for the last 6 or 7 years, I've enjoyed that dust abatement. And in 2020, when the county did not do it, I paid to get my area. I paid to get my area in front of Dayton Road, have that dust abatement stuff down. Thank you.
Thank you.
County Commissioners, when I was putting myself through school at Whitworth College, I worked on the County Road Department in Spokane County. There are other options. I don't know what laws may have changed, but there are such things as oiling the road. There are such things as chipping the road. Those are two different processes. But they do, they're less costly than a full paving. And I think we have to consider what that cost is going to be to the taxpayers. Thank you.
I live on Greenart Road, and that calcium chloride really helps me out. I pay for about 1,000 feet for the past 4 years or so. So, you know, it slows everybody down there, and I'd love to have it paved, but I know that's really costly. But what happened too was there's a lot of orchard that's went in there. And on Russell Road, they have to turn there on my gravel road, drive down it, because there's weight restrictions there. So anyway, just had my little say there, so thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Doug Hendrickson. I live on Auburn Road, just off Fur. I personally pay for calcium chloride to be put on the road myself because I don't like eating the dirt. All of you that's lived on a gravel road really know how wonderful that is when the wind's blowing the wrong way. So I'm all for it. I pay for it, and if you drive down that road, if you guys are out there, take a drive down it. There is no washboarding, there are no potholes for the whole season. And it has a residual that builds up as year after year after year. It starts building up to where it doesn't happen, like some of the things that you're hearing today. And I will continue to pay for it. Obviously, I'm sure the county is not going to do it, but I will. But I do it through the county, and you guys prepare the road for it to be sprayed and actually have your bid used for the cost of doing that. I pay the cost. But I believe in that stuff. It works. I understand there is some corrosiveness to it, but you got to be, I guess, the same thing when you're driving down the highway and they're spraying the stuff on the highway for the fall and spring. Another thing, there's a company out of Bonners Ferry, Idaho, which I don't know if you guys are aware of. I found this information when I was up there, gave it to your engineering department in the county to research. And what they do is they go out and work these roads, and they guarantee 2 years you don't have to do anything. You don't blade it, and there will be no potholes. And they do demonstrations, and they have in different parts of the country. Canada uses it a lot. If I can get the information again, if you talk to your engineering department, they should already have it. They provide a piece of equipment that hooks up to your road graders that works the dirt and applies the stuff. And it might be something to look into. It's very cost effective. I had all the information, like I say, and provided it to your road department. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Richard Dorman, and I can't believe we're having this conversation all these years on Dayton Road. I don't know who the road guy is this now anymore, but I have gone through a generation of county commissioners complaining because this road wasn't paved years and years ago. I've talked to a road department guy. A guy told me 10 years ago, this is a temporary fix, and then we'll pave this for you. He told me that the one problem is this bridge. And I says, in Whitman County, farmers got irritated with this kind of crap, and they said, can we go in and do something? So the farmers went in and did a whole bunch of work so the county could go in and pave the road. And this, I asked the road guy, he says, why can't we do that? Well, we can't do that. You know, you guys aren't certified or whatever. And so 10 years ago, and now we're still dealing with this crap on this road. And after the Glade was shut down last summer, it rained real hard and we had all this goop on our car. I had to pay a bunch of extra money to get the car cleaned off. And I just can't believe that after 10, 20 years that someone can't get off their duff and pave the dumb road. If we have extensive orchard traffic, heavy trucks that are going to Douglas Fruit, they're hauling potatoes to Richland. It's not like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so it needs to be paved now and forget this goop, as we call it, because it's an irritation. And I feel bad for my neighbors that have to deal with this dust problem, but this is absolutely ridiculous that we've dealt with this for all these years and the road department won't do a damn thing about it.
Thank you.
My name's Jacob Heinen. I live on the intersection of Paradise and Bueller Road in Connell. We've been paying for this magnesium chloride for the last 4 years, and it's a saving grace on our road there. It's an intersection, every road going in every direction is gravel. I live 100 feet off the road, and it's terrible. I have neighbors that travel, same thing, upwards of 70 miles an hour. And it's the dust is terrible. It's a safety concern. It's a health concern. And this magnesium chloride is my saving grace. I attended a meeting here about 6 months ago for a feedlot that the planning department approved for a conditional use permit. My concern was about the increase of traffic, reckless traffic, and I have yet to be able to work out anything with the public works department on helping that situation. And then then find out here this spring that this is a possibility of being, this practice has a possibility of being abandoned. Man, I beg you guys not to do that to me. It's, I understand the concerns of what my other neighbors are talking about, but at least past houses, this is super important for safety and for health. And so, and again, just like some of the other neighbors, I pay for it at my cost. The county does it for me. I don't see why it shouldn't be continued to be allowed at my expense. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Commissioner, we do have 2 callers on the line.
Okay. Got to hear from everybody first. So we'll take the first caller, and then I believe you have 4 statements.
I have 4 emails to read.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for that time. Constant bullying. Franklin County HR Director is the 3rd to resign over toxicity. While we have a policy, have confronted negative and aberrant behavior over the last 7 months, there needs to be an abuse intolerance for the conduct at the levels, she said. I think it's ironic because if you would have gone back 3 years ago, they were just hoping that I was the crazy guy out on the street. But I think it's very important that you read this Tri-City Herald article despite all that, there are some really fine people here, Hughes wrote. I would really like to thank Clint Didier, Rocky Mullen, Dwayne Davidson, Mike Gonzalez, Larry Zilger, and Matt Beaton. Sorry about that. I mispronounced that. Some elected, and the 98% of staff, including mine. Wow, that's funny. I think I said 98% of staff. But I think I keep hearing this theme. 20 years ago, we should have had a mental health facility. 10 years ago, they were going to pave this road. Citizens listening today, if you want to know what embezzlement, what government misappropriation of your funds looks like, that's what it looks like. Every county around you has paved roads like this. Every county around you has a mental health facility that lasts for more than 72 hours. They had this money 20 years ago, and they just kept putting it off, hoping that they would solve the problem by just arresting them. Mike, no offense, Mike, I don't know you, man, and I hope this isn't true, but Mike is a plant from Pasco. See, Jim used to work at the Pasco Police Department, then he brought all the cronies over that are connected to the deep, dark webs that he has. You're dealing with some of the biggest corruption you've ever seen. Why can't Franklin County be in the same positions every county around them is in? Mismanagement, embezzlement, whatever you want to call it, however you want to look at it, you have not been led properly. Stand up, get involved. I'm so glad hundreds of people are calling in, are watching these videos, voicing their opinions. That's right, put some magnesium on that road. It's bad for those kids to breathe all that dust in. It's similar to coal miners' lung. I feel bad for that gentleman. Just have a good day.
Thank you.
Commissioner, do you mind if I address that? I was never,
No, you can't.
I cannot.
Not a two-way discussion.
Okay, I just wanted to, he
No,
made some
That's fine.
allegations there.
No, it's public comment. We just listen. So
All right.
there's another caller.
Yeah, there is one more caller, Commissioner.
Go ahead, caller, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, caller, you have 3 minutes.
I hear him. I think I hear him on the line, but it's not coming through.
We can't hear you, caller.
Test, 1, 2, 3.
There you go. Okay, go ahead. Turn off your radio and speak into we're waiting for you to speak, sir.
Okay, can
There-
you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Let me, Dave Cortines, 4501 Moline Lane here in Pasco, Washington. Most of you know me as publisher of La Voz Hispanic newspaper, but I've been around here since 1997, and we created the Latin Business Association in 2007. We have been performing and bringing quality events to the Tri-Cities, and majority, at least 95% of them, all but one, were very successful and profitable. We have been active in the community since 2007, and we have created the International Promotion LLC. At this time, we are interested in bringing forward to you, gentlemen, the interest of managing the HAPO Center. We feel that and have watched the HAPO Center and can be a beacon on the hill. It's time that I have always known it as the track, and I continue calling it the track. But the track was built and performed and used for the farmers and agricultural. And I have seen that the farmers and agriculturals have not been presented much at the center. And we need to bring back events and bring back anything and everything that has to do with supporting the farmers in the community. I believe that the HAPO Center can be profitable. It can be a center that the community can use. It's no secret that some of the largest events that have happened have been supported by the Latino community, and it's time that we have lost. And I know that we've lost those events also. It's time that we bring back those events. Our promotional team has a representative that travels to Las Vegas every 3 months, and we're part of the Promotional USA contractors in bringing large events to the Tri-Cities. And we would like to have that opportunity in bringing those events to the, bring them back to the Tri-Cities and here to the HAPO Center. I did email you, gentlemen. I did send that email in earlier this morning. I know that you have a management team there. I think there's a lot of lacking happening that needs to be brought forward. But I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time. I want to congratulate you, commissioners, for keeping on Dwayne. He's a great asset to your board there, and I'm glad to see that he's still sitting at the table. And I also want to congratulate you in bringing on Mike Gonzalez in the administrative seat. I think both of them working hand in hand will be a big asset to the county. And so I don't want to bring any headaches or problems to you, but rather bring you some solutions and bringing forward our interest in managing the HAPO Center as the International Promotions LLC.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience for public comment?
I'm going to read these 4 emails, and they're all in regards to dust abatement. And so what I'll do is I'll read. We have another caller. Okay, do we? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So this subject is public comment, 2023 Base Stabilization Dust Abatement Program. Hello, my name is Jessica Weesey, and I live in rural Franklin County on a gravel road. I have lived on Hope Valley Road, which is a gravel road, since 2016. This road tends to get very dusty in the summer months when it is hot and dry and when there is increased agricultural traffic. Last year in 2022, my husband and I applied for a permit to apply dust abatement along our road. We noticed a major reduction in dust and a better quality of life. We hope this program continues, and we have benefited from it greatly. It is important that we are able to live in a rural area with healthy air for us and our children to breathe. Thank you for taking the time to read my statement for public comment. That's Jessica and Travis Weesey. This next subject matter, dust abatement again. Good morning. Sorry I couldn't appear in person. I had previously scheduled an appointment. I pay for a quarter-mile stretch of dust abatement on Dayton Drive in front of my house. It is a bit costly, but in the end, it's worth it. I had never lived on a gravel road and was taken aback after my first summer on one. I live on a half-mile dead-end road with a packing shed at the end. Every time a car went by, our house would have a cloud of dust looming around. Being a farmer, I know dirt is an enormous part of our life, so I just dealt with it. Then one day, while driving down our road behind a line of cars, the car in front of me had a bright idea to move over into oncoming traffic, assuming in hopes to improve their visibility and avoid the dust. I could not believe my eyes. After this observation, I started to pay attention and realized this was not an isolated incident. It happened daily. I immediately called Franklin County and was informing them. They said my road did not meet the qualifications to apply for dust abatement on county dollars. They said if I wanted it, then I could pay for it. I did 100% of it. I don't have to worry about one of my family or others being killed due to low visibility. Also, my house inside and out is less dusty. I change the HVAC filters less often, and our allergies have subsided. Thank you for your consideration, Lori Hayes.
That's
Next,
Lori Hales.
Oh, you are right, Lori Hales. Next subject, North Dayton Road between Ringgold and Ironwood. She says, Mr. Didier, my family lives on this road and wants dust abatement control. I believe the product applied is called calcium chloride to continue as it has for the past several years. This road is our only option to get to either Ringgold or Ironwood. There are 5 residences on this road. There are 270 North Dayton, 823 North Dayton Road, 960 North Dayton Road, 1231 North Dayton Road, 1770 North Dayton Road. It is my understanding there are many complaints from users that do not live on this road and are opposed to the dust abatement control product being applied. Using this portion of North Dayton Road is an option to anyone not living on this road. Everyone besides those living on this section of North Dayton Road has the option of staying on fully paved roads using Ironwood, Ringgold, and the connecting road of Glade North. Our road is heavily traveled by North Franklin County residents, farmers, ranchers, orchards, and hay trucks that enjoy our road as a shortcut. Prior to this dust abatement program, being outside working was like you jumped into a flour sack saturated with dust. This road has always been more of a dirt road versus a gravel road, never much gravel applied in the past years, and then the gravel would get graded into the bar ditch. It is not unusual for our road to be bumpy and in need of attention after winter. Every year as the dust abatement has been applied, the muck that accompanies has dramatically decreased with each passing year. It also dries up more quickly after rain and snow. Please continue with the dust abatement program for this section of North Dayton Road. Pamela Worsham Collins. And this will be the final email. Subject matter is dirt abatement for public comment. Good morning. I would like to make a public comment about the dirt abatement. Hi, my name is Carrie Rickenbach, and I'm for the dirt abatement. I live on North Dayton Road between Ringgold and Ironwood. It is a highly traveled gravel road, and I appreciate the dirt abatement that gets done every year. Yes, I agree, when it gets first applied, all of our vehicles get dirty, but after a day's worth of traffic, it is dry. If the county doesn't want to do the whole road, I think the county should pay for 600 to 1,000 feet in front of every house on our road. The dirt abatement doesn't slow the traffic down, but it eliminates the dust or helps with visibility of oncoming vehicles, farm implements, and pedestrians. My kids, if the county does decide not to do the dirt abatement, I would like North Dayton Road to be heavily patrolled by the sheriff's office to slow the traffic down and to limit the dust that way. Thank you for your time, Carrie Rickenbach. And that is it.
All right, is there anybody else on the phones? Nobody on the phones? Anybody else in the public comment? Now's the time if you want to speak a second time.
Yes, thank you. So I live on Falls Road, and a few years ago, it used to be a gravel road, and there was a pretty bad accident that my mother-in-law was in. So people that own property on these roads actually own to the middle of the road. That is your property. And that's why the county can't come in and just pay to have this done. That's why you have to pay for your section. It's the same as if you have it asphalted, which you could do. It's expensive, but if you own a farm, you pay for the asphalt to the middle of the road because that's your property. And I know my father-in-law and my husband's uncle, they're on both sides of the road, so they each paid to have that section asphalted. But what they do is you can apply, from what I understand, is you apply for a permit and they come out with that tube that counts vehicles. And if you have enough vehicles that go over that and click it, then you can apply to have your stretch asphalted. And that Falls Road, just a few years ago, got paved a little bit more because because other farmers were using that road. But it is your responsibility. I know it's expensive. You could do fundraising. I don't know. But it is a safety issue. That's why my mother-in-law was in a terrible accident, a head-on, because the dust does cause a safety issue. So that's just my 2 cents and my knowledge. I feel for these people that live on gravel roads. That's part of agriculture life. And so just there.
Thank you.
Appreciate you giving me another chance to talk here. So I never really got to finish what it was that I was saying. We had sinkholes in the end of North Dayton Road. I've also seen the same thing on Millwood Road just to the north over by Whitby's and the stuff they have over there. What happens is this stuff gets put on and it hardens up the road and ends up with potholes, as I was saying before. And as people drive through it, it kicks it in harder and harder and harder, and eventually it destroys the base layer of the road because honestly that's all that's left. I ask that, all of you that live on a gravel road, I ask that you consider a time where you drove down a well-graveled road. Was there a whole lot of dust? Usually it's very minimal, if any, dust on a well-graveled road. Our roads have never been well-graveled. Go out to like some of the dry lands or even, different counties, you'll see that these gravel roads are not nearly what we're dealing with now. And I agree, we definitely have a dust issue, but it shouldn't be solved with this, it should be solved with gravel. That being said, after all of this, I've been fighting against this stuff for since it started. A few months after it started, after I saw the issues we had with it. I met with County Engineer Craig Erdman, and what he told me was that these roads are passable 80 to 90% of the time, to which he had no reciprocal response when I said we have no choice but to travel them 100% of the time, every day of the year, multiple times a day. And pretty much that is the extent of how our voice is heard. So I'm asking you guys, please hear our voice. Please think of alternative solutions than this stuff, because this stuff destroys the roads, and it will cost more to rebuild the roads after they've been destroyed than it's saving right now. I know this stuff is not cheap, and it has to be just as profitable, if not more, to put gravel on instead of this stuff. So thank you guys. I appreciate the second time to talk.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
On this, I just like it to be known that many people have the opportunity, including Mr. Lips, who does not farm, doesn't have a direct farm on this road, and does not live on this road, has the opportunity to go from his house up Cooley Road, up Ringgold Road, down to Ironwood, Glade to Ironwood, to continue down past his roads. There's opportunities for people to go around this if they don't want it. It comes down to a choice, and they're choosing to complain over this versus us that live on it that want it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to end the public comment because we're going right into this discussion, and then we're going to look like we're going to have a pretty heavy discussion here. So if anybody hasn't spoke twice, if they want to speak the second time?
Yeah, somebody that's drove up and down Dayton Road for 4 years as well, from Tri-Cities and up to Basin City. I have experience with that road and Bueller and Paradise. Bueller and Paradise, the Public Works Department does a great job taking care of those roads up there. Very well graveled roads, and the dust is still terrible. So the idea that more rock equals that can equate to get rid of the magnesium chloride is just a false premise. That our roads are really well taken care of, really well graveled by the Public Works Department. Dust is still terrible. It's not an option for the dust solution. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if this is the last public comment or not, but the Civil Service Department would like to thank Michael for his very hard work, as well as the council from Jeff Briggs. We are moving forward. We're getting the position posted, and progress is being made. Thank you very much for your help.
Okay.
I would like to say that it does work, and I would suggest if you have opportunity, go to Fern, Auburn, drive the 500 feet or whatever it is that I pay for every year, and find a pothole in it. You won't find it. I don't know about the road base on the road they're talking about, but the one in front of my house, it works. It was sprayed last year and the year before and the year before, et cetera, and it hasn't been touched but one time, and it shouldn't have been, by a grader. But it's already back, and there wasn't any potholes in it to begin with. It works, and I would like you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move into regular business, 2023 Magnesium Chloride Supply Award.
We do, Mr. Chairman, have the second.
Oh, yeah, we got one more voucher to okay here first before we do it.
Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in a total amount of $1,233,349.95 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the approval of the clearinghouse salary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we'll move down to the 2023 magnesium. He's got a second back. Mr. Erdman.
Before the board is the award of the supply, delivery, and metered application of 30% magnesium chloride that was done off the small works roster. The typical amount for this project qualifies to be used, the small works roster, to find the vendor. We sent it out on small works, and we had two quotes returned, and GMCO Corporation of Rifle, Colorado, which I think used to be Roadwise, was the qualified low bidder at $198.99 per ton. Between the two processes, our base stabilization and permitting, we budget approximately $170,000 a year for this. And so we are seeking approval of the contract to purchase some mag chloride and have it applied.
Questions, commissioners?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you've heard all the comments. Don't need to back into those. But I've had conversations over the years with you and with your predecessors, and certainly no expert on gravel roads or dirt roads. You are. You're the county engineer. But my understanding, and what I think I've gleaned over the years, is that there are variables with different roads that really impact how effective mag chloride is.
Absolutely.
Part of it is the soil itself. Part of it is the road base that was put down when the roads were first constructed. They vary widely throughout the county. Part of it has to do, a lot of it perhaps has to do with moisture content that's there or not when it's applied. A lot of it has to do with the weather at the time that it's applied, if it gets rained on or other things. So there's always multiple variables. And so if there's anything that you want to share with respect to some of the specific roads that have been mentioned, that would be fine, but that's not really the premise of my question. Premise of my question is, historically, we have used, if I recall, a combination of contractor applied and public works team applied mag chloride.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. And today, are we doing it all with contractor, or is it still a combined effort?
It's still a combined effort. We still prep the roads. That's always been our function, whether it be by permit or whether it's for our specific use.
Okay.
We do the prep roads, and we hire a vendor to apply the magnesium chloride.
Right, and thanks for the clarification, because I didn't mean to imply that the contractor would prep the roads. That's, contractor's job is application.
But
But
that's the partnership.
Right, but the county has done application as well. County does all the road prep, but
Right.
historically, some of the application has been done by the county and some has been done by contractor. But it's been several years, but that's my recollection.
Yeah, it's past my memory that we've done our own. I know Benton County has looked to do their own.
Okay, well, maybe I'm just misremembering. It's not really important at this point. This is a contract to have a provider apply it. Is it the actual company that applies it that's from Rifle, Colorado, or do they hire local talent to do that?
They have satellites everywhere. I mean, this is a well-used product all over the state, in Oregon and Idaho, I'm sure.
Okay. So what I'm getting to is the company that we're looking to contract with applies this many locations. This is a primary function of their business. If there are quote-unquote experts in this application, it would be them?
Well, certainly. Most of the contractors that do this magnesium chloride are well qualified and understand the product and how to apply it properly.
Okay. So the point of that series of questions is to try and focus for myself where the problem exists, if there is one. It doesn't sound like the problem is with the application. You've got professional contractors who do this, as you said, all over the place. So I'm going to assume that's not the problem. I'm going to assume that mag chloride itself is not the problem because it's been used successfully in some places, but apparently in some places it's not successful or as successful. So with that as a backdrop, it tends to focus my thinking on that perhaps the issue is either road prep or necessary funding for road prep, or maybe a different approach, which might be mag chloride followed by gravel. You're the county engineer. I'm just looking for input from you as to if we really wanted to solve this problem on some of the roads where we're having the most difficulty and we had the funding to do it. Let's say you had a blank check that wouldn't pay for paving, but something short of that. What's the best that we could do for these problematic roads? Because I think there are some that are inherently problematic because of the soils more than others.
Right, and largely, especially, well, with any road, but particularly with gravel roads, the subgrade is the whole bargain, really. The road's going to perform how well the material underneath it performs, whether it's paved or gravel. But it especially will show in gravel. So there's several things that can be done, soil enhancements with cement, magnesium chloride application, more rock mixed with the bentonite at about 15%. That encases it. That makes people have the false impression that there's not rock on the road. But what it is that it is well encased and hardened so that it makes a good driving surface. That's desirable, less blading. None of these propositions, however, are inexpensive.
Right.
So,
soil cement's actually what they use at Hanford to encase
right,
radioactive materials.
And that is very dependent on what the conditions of the soil are.
Sure.
And stuff. So, yeah, admittedly, with mag chloride, we're using a broad approach. And, when you do that, you're going to have places where it's successful and places that it's not. On the balance, it's successful. And it is even somewhat successful in the areas that struggle. It does help. Can we do more? Yeah, we probably can. Just a matter of getting our resources and budget to those problem areas.
Okay. Well, on balance, all things considered, I think the mag chloride makes sense. I think we ought to continue to use it. But I also think that there are some folks that have particular roads that may either not be ideally prepared, or maybe need additional attention, or need more rock base or something, and would ask you to look to those particular roads where we've heard concerns about mag chloride. And I wouldn't be at all opposed to some sort of a proposed budget expense that takes some of these more problematic areas and looks at chip seal as an option, at least for stretches.
Yeah, that's, kind of going along that line. One of the issues that we have with local access roads is that there is no grant funding with federal or state for local access roads. It just isn't there.
Right.
So for those roads to be paved, that all has to come from our local county resources, and it's an expensive proposition. We have 400 miles of gravel road. If we're going to asphalt those all, you're looking at $400 million.
Yeah. Do you consider chip seal to be asphalt?
It's hard surface, but no, I don't. It's not structurally the same as.
Bring it up because I clearly said chip seal for a reason.
Right, and it can be successful, and it is probably, oil prices have made it less of a bargain than it was in the past. You can probably, cut the cost in half, maybe even by 2/3 by going to a chip seal surface, but it also, these roads aren't maintenance free, either a chip seal road or a paved road. You're trading one kind of maintenance for another, and it's in some cases you don't reduce costs. We've done a lot of chip seal roads in the past. I think for the most part they've been successful. I would like to see us be able to have a funding mechanism to do that again, but it's right now that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, as you know, but maybe not many people, I'm on the Washington State County Road Administration Board, which is half a dozen people in a room. We deal with these issues. We distribute the gasoline taxes for the state. Gas taxes are declining, distributions are declining. The legislature is spending lots of money on rapid transit in the west side and not pumping much money this way. So I get everything that you're saying. But we also do, as a requirement, a 6-year transportation improvement plan, a TIP, right?
Right.
And a STIP, a surface transportation improvement plan. And it's this board that approves those.
Correct.
So when you bring that in, you have the option to say, board, this is your time. Here's the list of projects that we have on this list for the next several years. The top ones obviously can be funded in the near term, but it gives us the opportunity then to make the decision that, no, we're not going to do this and this. Instead, we're going to chip seal or we're going to pave. The point of that is that, one, it's public. 2, there's a hearing where the public can weigh in on what those priorities are for that funding for the roads. And 3 is, given the needs that the money in the TIP normally goes to, I think the public would look at it and say, we'd love to have our roads paved, but there's no way I'm giving up this and this and this for chip seal or pavement. I'll deal with the mag chloride. But I think that's part of the discussion that's missing, is that it is a local decision about
It is.
where these funds go.
And if it is the will of board, I'm more than happy to bring
I know you are.
a local road improvement project to that. The
Right.
only thing that's been keeping it, and I believe, there's always a few on there. The only thing that really, like I said, keeps it is that we're supposed to be officially constrained.
Yeah.
But
So what
I
I'm
would love to do
doing
that.
really here is helping explain what the process is and giving you the opportunity to come in and let the public weigh in on where these
think that's
road
excellent.
dollars are spent, because it's their money and it's local roads.
Yep, I agree.
Commissioner Mullen, any questions?
Yeah, just, listening today, the concerns, when they apply the magnesium chloride, do they close those roads at all?
We post signs and advise people to drive slowly. I mean, we can close them.
Well, I
but
guess my
that's-
question would be is, if it takes 2 days to set it up, then maybe it should be restricted to the people that actually live on that road.
That's something we could look at doing.
If that would, and would it help?
Possibly. I think if people drive at lower speeds, I think for the most part takes care of most of the problem. I'm not going to say that it's going to fix every problem that, because some of these roads do have more of a clay base in them than others, and that can pose a problem. But slower speeds certainly helps reduce that.
If the traffic was restricted for the 2 days until it had a chance to set up,
That's something we
chance
could
of
look at. We
improvement,
haven't
'cause
done it in the past, but we certainly could look at doing that.
I'm just asking because I don't know.
Yeah, we're looking at that in chip seal because of issues, because of closing the roads while we're doing it.
It's an expensive process, and so we'd like to.
It is, and it's,
keep it.
very inconvenient to the public. We prefer to have them open and at low speed so that they can use them.
Sure.
But at the same point, too, there becomes a time with liability and risk and safety that maybe we need to close them.
Well, I'm just saying maybe close them, but not close them, but restrict them to use
local
for
traffic.
only the local people, the 4 or 5 people that will actually live on Dayton Road for 2 days. It's somewhat of an inconvenience, but if it saves the county money and improves the condition of the road, I think that would be a good step to take a look at.
Something more than willing to look into.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so I just want to thank everybody for coming in today and commenting, writing in and calling in, because this is your county. We're your elected officials, and we want to hear from you on what are your concerns. Next, there was talk last week that when this was brought up, where we discussed it 2 weeks ago, that we were trying to ban this material from our county. No, we're not trying to ban it. We're trying to make sure that the people are getting what they want. Third, may I have those pictures down there that was presented to us, please? I think when you apply this, do you apply water also to set it?
It's a mixture of water and the magnesium chloride. It's about 30% salt, the rest of it's water.
Because, I've seen these roadways and I drove on them because I got the complaints years ago and I drove on them, and when they are saturated like this, it's a hazard. It is dangerous because it is really, and I drove down it and I couldn't wait to get off of it. That's how bad it was, but it was a very rainy year that year.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those pictures. I've seen them before.
Right,
And
but-
I drove it under those.
The picture that I want to bring up is this one, and I think this may be some of our problem with our roadways, is when we go into the borrow pit and we bring up dirt to try to reclaim the little bit of gravel that's there, we're contaminating our roads with dirt. We do this every spring, and people are upset because you can see the material that we're bringing up with it, and then we roll it back into the borrow pit, and it's a ball. And when it freezes in the winter, it's a hazard. This is contaminating our road, and I'm in agreement with what I've heard here about gravel. I think if we quit contaminating our roadways with the dirt from the borrow pit to reclaim a little gravel, but other than that, put down gravel, we might eliminate the dust control a little bit. There is also, Heinen's have down there, and I've been buying and putting in my own roadways, and I'm no engineer, I'm not claiming to be, but I'm using this stuff with fines, and there's no dirt coming off my roads, no dust. And it's the fines, and it also compacts, and they're selling it at a reduced rate to get rid of it. So I don't know if the county could maybe do an experiment on a road, but look into that material because it is excellent. It's almost doing exactly what this is doing, but it lasts. We're spending $140,000 on this a year. And I just want to reiterate that when I came in as a commissioner, we were shifting $1.7 million from the road department every year for the general fund. We're down to $350,000 right now. We're putting money into your account. And I would like to see it on these roadways, is in the form of gravel.
I understand that. We're still having to stretch resources from those other levy shifts years ago.
Right.
Not to mention our cost of doing business has gone up considerably in the last 2 years.
Yes.
And I'm trying to stretch our resources as far as I can to get.
But in a 10-year time at $140,000, we're $1.4 million. And I don't know what it would cost to chip seal but I know we have a bridge problem on Dayton Road. There's a narrow bridge.
Yes, and I think it's going up for funding.
It is.
I'm not sure. I'll have to check on that. I know we just had load ratings done on several bridges, and we had quite a few come back that were probably going to be eligible for. I don't quote me if that was one of them.
I'm not going to hold you to it. But didn't you also say you were looking into, instead of bridges, culverts?
If it's appropriate. Some places we can do that. Other places, we're going to do that at Hollingsworth.
Yes.
And stuff. So some places that's appropriate, some places it's not.
And it's a
Depends.
lot cheaper too, right?
Generally speaking.
Yes.
Although the cost of steel has gone up enough in the last few years that.
Right. But we need to broaden these bridges a little bit before we ever think about.
Well, and currently my standard for new bridges is that we look at 32 feet as being the minimum. The old minimum was 28. I didn't think that was adequate. So on local access roads, the minimum is 32 feet for a width of a bridge.
And I think that's good.
And on the majors, it would be 40.
With the size of equipment that is being moved around out in the blocks now, we need
and that's
more
what was one of the
space.
driving factors in me increasing the width of the minimum width of our bridges. It's slightly more expensive, but in the long haul, I don't see farm equipment shrinking. I'd like to see it shrink. Honestly, I would. It's a huge problem.
We're all trying to be effective too. I mean, our costs are up big time.
I understand. I'm giving you from the road engineer's point of view. It would be nice if they at least make it a little more mountable down roads. But I'm not. I don't have access to the equipment manufacturers, and it is what it is. But I can only do what I can do on my side of it.
We'll get back to the magnesium here, but I've heard a lot of, and I've reached out to a lot of people out there, and I've heard a lot of people that want it, and they even pay for it. And I don't want to ban it. That's not a thought process from this board, is to ban this. No, but we got to look at the people that are not happy with it, and how can we maybe keep it off of their area from their road where they're having problems. Yeah. And maybe we got to do a better of just putting it in front of the houses, because I've lived out there my whole life. I lived out there when Glade Road was a gravel road, and we ate a lot of dirt. So it's part of living out there.
We try to use it in the most cost-effective manner that we can to get the most out of that road that we can. We spend a lot of money blading roads.
Yes.
And the less passes that we can obtain on blading.
So I just drove up Dayton Road, and you had said last meeting that you, or 2 meetings ago, that you had just bladed it. And for me, I drove up it, it was very nice. It was better than it was when I drove it the first time. But can we do a check? Can we lay out and check the traffic on Dayton Road? Because if it's as heavy as they're saying, we need to really look at paving that road.
Oh, I agree. I wouldn't argue that, and yes, we can try and find some place to put out some traffic count. Gravel roads are harder to get accurate data on, just because, it doesn't like to work as well. But that's something we can look at doing. But, there are a lot of roads in the county I'd like to see paved.
Yes. So, thank you. Is there any other questions?
I just want to follow up on that very last sentence you made. I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't have roads in this county they'd love to see paved. And so when it comes time for that 6-year transportation improvement plan that is funded by the citizens of Franklin County and is overseen by you and approved by this board, I'm looking forward to a lot of public input as to what ought to be on that list. And I think
that would be
when the
tremendous.
public sees what those projects are that you're proposing and what the trade-off would be to pave these roads, what they would lose, I think a lot of folks would say, no, we'd love to have the paved roads, but these projects that you've lined up and the state and federal funds that will flow to them that would be lost, millions of dollars if we don't do those, I think it'll give everybody a much clearer picture of why we aren't paving these roads. Thank you.
And just look at the borrow pit reclaim and
I
come out and
understand
watch-
that, but we're trying to keep the width of the roads. Well, I won't go into it now, but I understand the issue.
Thank you.
Move for approval of Resolution 2023-104 is presented in the matter of the award of 2023 supply delivery and metered application of magnesium chloride.
Second.
There's been a motion and a
Mr. Chairman?
second. For
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to raise the issue about, I think the second whereas, the RCW that's quoted, I just checked this RCW and it's a different amount. You want to look at this, Craig? I got it up here.
It's 300,000.
Yeah, that's a higher
It
amount
said
now.
up to 300,000.
Right. That's
Yes,
what,
that's so it qualified for the.
but the RCW is a higher amount than 300,000. It's been updated, so I don't know if you.
Oh, okay, well, I don't know if our procurement policy has or
If the
not.
contract
Still
amount
gonna
is
be in
less than
compliance.
300, it's irrelevant.
Right,
Yeah, it's,
yeah, it qualified no matter
Right.
what for small works, so.
right.
Just
Whether
want
you
to point it
buy
out
our
that it's
policy or
stating an
buy-
RCW, it's misstating what an RCW says, but
Gotcha.
it's,
They
it still
update
could
those
pass.
purchasing things, and perhaps we haven't been.
And I did notice that, but I just thought that the small works is up to 300,000, right?
Yes,
That's the way I interpret it, but this is at 140. 139 something.
yeah, so it was well under the threshold.
Yep.
And what I'm saying is the RCW is a higher amount than the 300,000.
That's a,
Mr. Davidson, that comes under the heading of a Scribner's error.
Yeah, I'm
And we
well
have a
aware.
motion on the floor. I'd like it to be voted on.
Well, there's been a motion and a second. Now we go into discussion, and this is great discussion. So you're saying in the RCW here that it is,
It does no bearing on the fact that this would still be under even the 300. I'm just trying to point out that our resolution has something that's stating in RCW that's incorrect. So it
Well-
has no bearing. It says
let me ask for-
RCW allows for less than 300,000.
Oh,
And
so
the
the
RCW
RCW
says less than $350,000.
Oh, okay.
$1,000.
Okay.
It was updated a
We'll-
couple years ago.
We'll make sure that that's updated in future. Thank you.
Make it.
good catch, Mr. Davidson. Thank you. That's why you're getting paid the big bucks to be the consultant.
Big bucks, we're in the next sector.
All right,
That's
we
the
have,
Scribner's there right there, big bucks.
all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to the solar battery grant application by the McKinsey presentation. McKinsey?
Just wanted to update, as far as March 21st, we had a consensus we were asking for the HAPO solar project. It would be both panels as well as a storage cell battery. We did not have information at that time. We were waiting for it for the storage cell. And so now that we do have it, then McKinsey is able to do a presentation to update you. And the application we received a consensus for was applied on the 23rd of March, and we hope to have an answer by May 1st. Sometimes that gets changed, but that's what we're looking for, in effect, the full thing to be paid for, $2.142 million, and that would be by both state and federal funds. And I have Christy Hoffpower here, as well as Lance Funk, and they're going to present to you what this will do for us out at HAPO.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As she said, we're just here to maybe fill in some of the details. I know this was discussed at prior meetings, but we were working on the details clear up until the day the grant was submitted, so we're just trying to fill in some of those details for you. So this is a Washington State Department of Commerce grant. It's a solar plus storage grant. The state has it was about $36 million allocated to this program, and the goal of the program was to deploy solar and battery storage systems in community buildings in Washington to enhance grid resiliency, provide backup power for community buildings to support critical needs. So the HAPO Center, being a community building, has some facilities and size that make it ideal for either a mega shelter or a command center, communication center, or a distribution center in case of an emergency. So we felt that it fit the intent of what the grant was trying to achieve. Understanding that the county did not have funds for the project, we designed it such that it would fit within the grant. So the grant maximum you can receive is $1.5 million. There's a 30% match. They are encouraging to use the investment tax credit monetization of for the 30% match. So we just basically designed the system within those dollars. So there would be no additional dollars added to the project. And the intent here is to run critical systems, communications, lighting, air circulation, during a power outage, trying to get to 3 days of being able to run those systems until other backup power could be brought in. We did reach out to the community, so we talked to the Franklin County Emergency Management folks. You have a very robust emergency management given your location. And we also talked to the local chapter of the American Red Cross, and we talked to the city of Pasco. And this was all in an intent to see how this building fits into their emergency management plan and what they see as being critical for a system like this. So we have letters of support from them. And I am going to let Lance talk about the technical details of the system.
Thank you. So what you can see on the screen is a rough layout from the preliminary design of the solar array and battery storage. It's not set in stone at this juncture, but this would largely be on the south-facing roof of the expo hall, and the battery would be in the grass patch, would be on the southeast corner of the building. How this system was sized, you were limited to a net metered array or 100 kW AC, so that's what is on the roof. And then basically built on dollars, we put appropriately sized battery system in there and put a scheme for control with that battery to maximize the use of this building per the recommendations from your emergency management team and the Red Cross and the city of Pasco. So what this array by itself will produce is about 190 megawatt hours a year annually. A conservative dollar estimate on that single array would be about $4,700 a year. I do want to point out to the commissioners that this does not include any demand savings, which is where a good portion of your utility bill cost comes from. The reasoning behind that is at this juncture, the grant is predicated on resiliency and emergency management systems. And so as it's put together right now, the battery would largely stay full in the event of a power outage so you can maximize the usage down the line. The next step in this is going to be to design this more fully to determine what level of demand savings that we can contribute to the building. And so you could have more energy or more dollar savings from this system when you start to implement demand shaving or demand shedding capabilities in the building. That's just not something we had, quite frankly, had the time to account for pre-submitting the grant. And I know there's been some risks that are brought up specifically with solar and battery storage that I wanted to address with the commissioners today on what steps and implementations are included at this point in the design cost. So the battery storage systems itself have an interior fire suppression system. However, we did budget to put an additional fire standpipe for the fire department to come out and put out any fire as a secondary fire suppression system. Another thing that we can implement, we have budgeted at least at this point to put in, is a containment system around the battery. The picture shown is for a utility transformer, but largely would be a similar system. This basin is designed to catch and hold the volume of water or volume of liquid that it would take to put out the battery or whatever liquid is in the batteries to prevent it going into groundwater. In the event that there was a fire, all drains would close in this, or a leak, drains would close, this basin would fill up, and then it would be pumped out and remediated. And then as far as the solar systems are installed with a rapid shutdown system per code, meaning that if an individual module were to have a short or other issue that could potentially cause fire, it shuts it down prior to that happening as a safety metric. And now I'll hand it back over to Christy, just kind of give an overview.
So one of the objectives of the project that's currently in process there was to meet the Clean Buildings Performance Standard. This is a state mandated standard of energy usage for buildings of that size. And so we wanted to just maybe clarify a little bit about where that stands. So the bar on the far left is where the building stands right now. Their project that is in process right now, that's phase 1, that's already in construction, will drop you down to that next bar in numbers 53 EUI. This, if you get this solar grant, this would drop it a little bit. Then you would still need to do phase 2 to bring you down to the far right, which is your Clean Buildings Performance Standard target. And then additionally, potential, these are all estimates, right? Until the project was actually completed, but potentially might have to do a second solar array to get it clear down to the actual standard. So if money were no object, we would have proposed 2 solar arrays because that's where you could get the most benefit in terms of reducing your cost. But we'll save that for future phases. And the timing, so with the application was submitted on March 23rd. It's being evaluated now. The Commerce date for announcing successful applicants is May 1st. If they hit that date, then they expect to negotiate contracts and be under contract by July 1st. You have until July 1st of 2026 to complete the project. If you're awarded and it is under contract in July, that's when we would finish design and probably be able to be possibly ordering equipment by the end of the year, but it would not be installed until next spring or summer in 2024. So that's where it stands.
All right. Questions? Anybody? Well, that's where we're at on it. We may not get accepted then, because that's right. There's a possibility that we may not get accepted for this grant.
Right, it's a competitive grant, so there's applications came in from all over the state.
All righty. Well, we'll wait to see what happens, huh?
Yep, and then we'll come back if you get the grant and we'll talk about finishing the design.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What can the county do to improve our competitiveness, aside from funding Phase 2?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alrighty, next we'll move down to the commissioner administrative updates. I guess we'll start with our consultant, Mr. Davidson. Do you have anything? Okay, Mr. Gonzalez?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, it's been a really busy week over the past couple of weeks. Had a chance to attend the Pasco Chamber meeting, which I'm a member of. Had the opportunity to see Sheriff Raymond speak, and it was well attended and well received. Had a chance also to visit the RV park with Shirley Jones to learn a little bit about that operation. Also attended the Kiwanis meeting, which I'm a member of, and the Commission on Hispanic Affairs, which I'm a commissioner on. Had an opportunity to meet with SVM, who manages the HAPO Center. Had a good meeting with Shirley out there and her son. Had a great meeting with the Yakima tribal members, along with Commissioner Peck yesterday. Talked about the subject of shoreline reconveyance, along with TRIDEC. So would like to thank TRIDEC for putting that together, because I think we had 25 tribal members, really well attended, and really great to touch base with that group and develop that relationship. Also attended a mental health advisory board with Sheriff Raymond. This is the 17-member board of stakeholders across the Tri-Cities, really trying to solve a multitude of issues. So really trying to get enveloped in that and learn much more about that. So have a lot on my list, but I'll stop it there. So definitely been taking everything in and keeping really busy, but soaking it up, and it's that old adage of drinking from a fire hose, but it's been great.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Peck?
I was in Olympia last week for a few days chairing the Legislative Steering Committee for the 39 counties under the State Association of Counties. Learned at that meeting that my appointment as chair of that Legislative Steering Committee looks like it's been extended for a year. Washington County Road Administration Board meeting also in Olympia Thursday and Friday of last week. I made reference to this earlier for folks who aren't familiar with the County Road Administration Board. It's a group of engineers and county commissioners from across the state, and among other things, we oversee standards of good practice where county engineers and the counties have to meet certain statutory obligations and performance in order to qualify for the county's share of gasoline taxes collected throughout the state. A number of other issues as well. And that was Thursday and Friday. And then yesterday, Monday, met, as Mr. Gonzalez mentioned, met with the Yakima Nation down along the shore of the Columbia River off the end of Dent Road. Shoreline reconveyance is something we've been working on for about a decade. Actually, you could even go back more like 30, 35 years, but it was under the Water Resources Development Act, WRDA. That effort to get the Corps of Engineers' own shoreline reconveyed to local municipalities eventually failed, and so this is a new effort that started probably 4 years ago now. Former County Administrator Johnson was heavily involved, and now Mr. Gonzalez has filled those shoes. The discussion that I had with the Yakima Nation on behalf of the board and the county emphasized the same messages that we've been using, which is the county's reconveyance portion would start probably somewhere just west of the Interstate 182 bridge, where we have the border between the city of Pasco and Franklin County. And from there, you follow the Columbia River shoreline northward all the way up to Grant County. And the keys in that discussion were that the Yakima Nation representatives appear to be concerned about any kind of development along those shorelines. We spoke about ESA-listed anadromous fish and the fact that any reconveyance would still obligate the county to comply with National Marine Fisheries, with NEPA, any of the other environmental laws and rules concerning development and protection of protected species along that shoreline. And I think all in all, the the Yakima Nation representatives were pleased to hear that the county is willing to accept reconveyance, but understands and respects that the area is densely identified with cultural and archaeological sites that would also make any sort of development extremely problematic. So this is a major undertaking. Tribes that have ordinary and accustomed use in this area are numerous. I would guess if you counted them all up, it'd probably be somewhere close to 24 different tribes. And so this effort has to balance the interests of all those tribes, as well as the federal government and the Corps of Engineers and the municipalities and the counties. So it's something that you and I will get more involved in going forward. And I appreciate your being there yesterday. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen.
So yes, I would concur with Mr. Gonzalez that he has hit the road running. He's doing a great job of keeping us informed by sending us out a update on what his activities are for the week, and it's much appreciated, and I think Mike's doing a great job. Thank you. Also, I had several calls and emails on people that are living on Dayton Road about the dust abatement, and the calls I got, they were in favor of it because of the dust control. And I just want to say, too, that it was a little over a year ago that we asked Craig Ergman to take over for Mr. Mahoney when he left. And there's not been much discussion since then. So, you know, when things go smoothly, I just don't want Mr. Urban to feel that he has been overlooked. He has been doing a great job and taken on a lot of extra responsibility, and I do appreciate that. So, and also that the work on Burr Road, Burr Canyon has started. They're removing the broken guardrails, and so that project is underway and moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to just reiterate, Mr. Mullen, and thank you, Craig, for everything you're doing. I know you're one man doing two jobs, and I appreciate what you're doing. We just need to listen to our public, and, you know, we all think we might have the answers, but we can always listen, and maybe we can all hear something that makes sense. Last week, Port Pasco meeting, Ben Franklin Transit meeting, and then yesterday I had an OPD meeting with Benton County about some issues. But got a call from a gentleman that lives down by, used to be Tater Boy, it's the Lamb Weston plant right out on Glade Road. Boom cannon going off throughout the night. And Mr. Gonzalez, we need to look and see who we're going to have for a code enforcement officer, because we still have nothing in place. And that's supposed to, I believe it's supposed to come from the public planning and building, is it, or public works? Craig, is that under your category?
Yeah.
It's planning.
I think it's planning and building.
I've had a quick conversation with Derek, so I'll follow up with him and
Please,
see where we go from there.
Because if they don't have the personnel to do it, then we're going to have to ask our sheriff to do it, because they said this boom gun's going off all night long, and it is very annoying. And it's keeping people awake, and we know what sleep deprivation does. It makes people crazy, so we need to take care of that thing. Plus a lot of phone calls on the magnesium being applied, and I want to thank everybody, because this is how, if you're not happy with something, this is how we get it resolved, is by public input. So thank you for coming in. And then I've got a couple calls from Cubby's Electric, and they have not heard anything from the economic development. And have you reached out to him? Have you reached out to him, Mr. Gonzalez?
No, I talked to Benton County first because I wanted to get some perspective from a few folks that are in the weeds on that subject. So before I went into there, so I'm planning to reach out to him today because I wanted to get a little bit more context and information on just the process. And
okay, because they have not heard anything from anybody. They keep calling me, and I'm trying to tell them, hey, we're working on it, but I don't know who to put them in touch with.
So, Mr. Chairman, the Executive Director of the Benton Franklin Council of Governments has had ongoing conversations with them, even as recent as last week's meeting till today. So I don't know how recent your conversation was with them, but...
Yesterday.
Well...
They said they have not heard from anybody. I guess maybe I'll give you the number, and maybe we're getting a hold of the right people. Because the other tenant in there is Knights, and maybe they're calling them instead of Cubby's Electric, who is Henry Coots, right? Isn't that it? Henry Coots.
So the Executive Director at Benton Franklin Council of Governments is the lead on it, and I'll touch base with her today and just confirm that she has in fact had recent contact with them, because my previous conversations with her in the last few days, she has affirmed that she is in fact talking with both of them and has been pretty steadily all along. So I'll get to the bottom of it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my presentation. So next we'll move down to elected and department head business. Is there any elected department heads that'd like to come forward?
So, as a follow-up to your caller that lives in Burbank and Walla Walla County, Mike wasn't a crony of mine, just so you know. I started to work for the city of Pasco in 1981, where I spent 33 years as a police officer. My last assignment, I believe, was interim police chief and captain of the Pasco Police Department. I ran on my own 2 feet and got elected as sheriff in 2014 and took office in 2015. And when I walked across the street, I brought no cronies with me. Okay, and I also brought with me my 33 years of my personnel file and made copies of it and delivered them to then new Human Resource Manager Carly Nave, delivered a complete copy of those that sit in Human Resources. So for any of the naysayers out there that are concerned about my job performance over the years, you certainly can make a public disclosure request for my personnel files. Might take a while because there's 3 binders, each binder about 4 inches thick. When I took office as sheriff, I quickly learned that the county is approximately 1,300 square miles with over 20,000+ road surface miles. And that at any given time, at least when I first took office, there was generally 1.5 sheriff's deputies patrolling that 1,300 square miles. Today, in 2023, if we're lucky, we have about 2.5 deputies that are at any given time patrolling those areas, responding to calls, working traffic, and all those type of issues. So I say that as a segue to this. The booming that you're hearing at night is trains being humped in the railroad yards, and I don't mean that crudely. They bring railroad cars up onto a hump, and they shoot them down the rail lines, and they build trains, and you hear that over and over all night long. It's been that way for years. Historically, every train that comes into Franklin County or into this state has to come through the Pasco yards, and this is where the trains are built, redirected, moved all over the place, and it's not going away. It's one of those things that we're all going to have to learn to live with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other department heads, electeds?
So, Commissioners, I want to bring you up to speed on a legislative bill that has passed the Senate, the legislature, and is now before the governor for signing, and that's Substitute House Bill 1355. 1355 will completely change the criteria, the income, and the qualifications for seniors in the county for taxation purposes, exemptions, disabled veterans for the qualifying. We will see by this, and I have no doubt the governor will sign it. It had bipartisan support hugely. Come August of this year on, and the people applying and starting for next year's taxation, it will easily double, if not triple, the amount of individuals that will qualify, and they will qualify for a much higher. Currently, they can qualify at an income, all total household income, all sources, $44,316. It is looking as though, and we're still waiting until next month to find out what Franklin County's Office of Financial Management projection will be for median household income. But the projection so far, the early numbers, will put people to qualify at a minimum of $55,000 from the $44,000. It could be as high as $59,000 for a household income. So you can see the impact that will be as far as the amount or numbers of people that will qualify, which is great for people that are seniors, low income, and so forth. That will shift their share that comes off of their taxation to all of the other taxpayers within the county, and it will double, if not close to triple, the amount of individuals that my office will be dealing with starting the first of next year on qualifying. So I just wanted to bring the commissioners up to speed on that, because it will have a tremendous impact, on the assessor's office.
When you say 44 or 55 to 59 thousand income?
Yes, household income.
Is that gross or net?
That's total gross, all sources, even it calculates differently for the exemption. It's not what somebody would file on a tax return. It's all sources of income. So if you have a child living in your home that contributes $500 a month, that $500 counts, even though you wouldn't pay income tax on it, but it counts towards the household income for maintaining that household from all sources. And there are certain incomes on certain veterans, disabled veterans, certain incomes do not qualify, don't count. We don't count that income, some of it. So there's some of those factors that weigh into it. There's exemptions, different medical costs, medical treatments, prescriptions, equipment that comes off of the income. So that does get subtracted. So in that sense, it would be somewhat of a net if you're counting those. Okay?
Thank you.
But it will be an impact.
And Sheriff, I'd just like to say that maybe we, as I was outside late last night, and I did hear a boom gun go off, and that's what this complaint was. It was a boom gun. I think he's lived here long enough, and he's well known that he knows the difference between a train car hitting each other or a boom gun. He said it was a boom gun for orchards. So we might just, I haven't had the chance to go out at night down there and listen, but I'm going to. Okay, do I get to be a deputy then?
No, don't do it.
All righty. Mr. Beeden.
I appreciate the opportunity. This matter that I'm going to go over here briefly I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do it here in front of the board all at once. And I'll just start into it and explain to you what we've got here. It's basically a audit that we performed that is a serious matter that needs review by the entire board and needed to be presented to you all at the same time. The matter will need review and action. It's an audit we're alerted to in early January and have been performing the review and trying to figure out since that time. So it revealed, substantial losses. And what I want to say is, at least for the category that it's in, what I want to say is and reiterate is they are losses and not fraud. An audit was performed of the payroll practices and resolutions directly pertaining to the payroll function for the Board of Commissioners. And it was completed, and the information or the results impact both past and present commissioners entirely. Knowing the nature of the information and my past experience here at the board, I'd ask you to let me complete this brief summary about what we found. It's pretty brief, and then it's a bunch of the documents and the supporting documents that brought us here, as well as the spreadsheet, knowing that this board has all the power to choose what to do with the information. And again, I'm not asking for any action at this meeting, only presenting our findings and requesting future action, hopefully immediate, at the next meeting, which I'll end with those. So on 12523, MRSC, and for the benefit of the listeners and for everyone, MRSC is the Municipal Research and Services Center. It is a nonprofit organization that helps with local governments across the state of Washington to better serve the communities by providing legal and policy guidance on any topic. For more than 80 years, they have, local governments have turned to MSC for independent and reliable guidance on legal and policy matters. So since I've been in office, they send out these blog posts, and we use them if they're applicable to ours. I just send them on to accounting, and they review what we have. So in January of this year, an insight came out for elected officials and benefit programs, and the language that was published in it described a Franklin County practice that triggered a review. Specifically, that language was with regard to benefits that apply to us, was a stipend could be used to could be given to an elected official instead of health insurance, but a stipend would be treated as extra compensation given the constitutional prohibition against additional compensation during your term in office. The stipend could not be given or accepted until the officer starts or is reelected to their term. So that's right on point for the practice that we have and that's been discussed over time. So I just shot it off, and the review, turned into an audit. And that's what I would say. What we thought was going to be an opportunity to clean up policies and practices turned into a much bigger problem for Franklin County. The language described, the review started in 2016 when a post-election resolution enabling the conversion of, quote, excess healthcare benefits to cash for elected officials. The resolutions, upon suggestion by MRSC and further audit research, indicated the county commissioners erred at that time by including themselves in the original and subsequent resolutions that increased their benefits, which they turned to cash and salary, during their term. And so, and then that's prohibited by the Constitution, which in each one of these packages, here you can pass those out to them. In each one of these, and it's just a summary because really, like I said, the discussion is going to be going forward, but the calculation, unfortunately, has some, big numbers in it and some smaller numbers, but it affects past and present. And that's why I would say the recommendations, which I'll end with, was that we get a new, as quickly as we can, we get a new resolution empowering the payroll department to change the way it processes these excess benefits only for the board. And that's an important distinction, that the Constitution, you can't vote for your own. It can't impact you interim. And so what it appears, or what we found is that any of the increases that didn't start in the election year and weren't provided for prior to the term, any of those incremental increases were unconstitutional. And so they were not compliant. So it's still going on right now. We need a resolution to stop that. And then number 2 on page 2 was the procedures and practices so the county can implement changes. The county commissioners, because you can do it constitutionally. It's just the way it's being done at Franklin County has been unconstitutional. And number 3 on there, and I want to note, is I have on the second page under recommended course of action, is the legal review. And I would say that in our audit, it should be noted, all 3 resolutions were written and submitted by the former HR director and our county administrator, and we could not see any indication on the ASR that the prosecuting attorney's civil department reviewed these for the issue that we are suggesting is a violation. And so the last thing we will do, which is we've already reported this again, I want to say this is a loss and not fraud. And so a lot of it has to do with the dates of the actions and then the increases in the interim years. Again, this is all new information to you, so my hope is I can present this to you. I mean, if you have any brief questions, that's fine. I wouldn't expect you to have many because you're just looking at the data. And on page 3 is a table of contents. You know, it's the cover letter. I cite, there's a couple of the insights that have some of the legal MRSC's guidance on this, as well as the resolutions. I even put in the constitutional articles are cited. And then the internal calculations, again, on table of contents number 3, it's in color, but it explains the numbers that we found in question. And again, the board will have to decide, obviously with legal review and input on, you know, how to recover the funds or what's truly, there's a lot to be researched, especially for each of you that are impacted.
Questions?
So looking at the estimated benefits to cash amounts and question totals, I myself have never taken any money for in lieu of insurance. I've always taken the insurance. My question is this an ongoing process where people are being overpaid? Because just from looking at it real quickly.
Yeah, I'm the face of this, but I mean, the audit happens.
If I've only been in office 2 years.
I'll let Tim answer.
And my amount is the same as someone who's been here 5 or 6. It just, I don't understand what.
And I too take the insurance, so I'm curious,
how can we be equal if one of us has been here 6 years and one of us has only been here 2? I don't follow the train of thought of the money. And if it's $334 that that I've collected in an insurance somehow benefit, I'm more than glad to pay that back, because my intent was always to only take the insurance, and I've never taken any cash in lieu of insurance.
On some of the more specifics, I can certainly provide some of that information, but a lot of it does have to do with just whether it was timing of whether you were already in office when something was enacted versus.
Well, I surely wouldn't be responsible for something that happened before I was in office.
No, it would be if ultimately if you had made a decision on something, if a decision was made prior to you coming in office and then you came in office midterm on that, then no, you would not be. For the amount on you, I can't remember the. Well, let's see.
I can speak to so the one that started it all was in 2016, and that still governs all the electeds, but specifically this problem only pertained to you guys because you vote on the numbers. But in the resolution, it says in here, the excess cash benefits not applied for payment or premiums or sick or cash outs for elected shall be taken as cash in lieu of insurance grossed down after the employer tax. So what happens is there was instances where you guys voted for an increase so that the benefit allotment is increased, but the cost of the insurance hadn't started yet, which gave you an overage, and this resolution directs what to do with it. And this has never, I don't think any of you probably went back and read this, or that's why, we need a review of all of this for on the timing of these things, the implementation of them, because, the payroll department uses what's in place, and this is what's in place, and that's how you two, despite taking the insurance, if there was an overage, 2016-426 directs them that if there's an overage, it goes to this. And it's in here, it can go to either salary or it says or deposited to the elected officials deferred compensation. But the reality of that is it has to go into this one pot and you have to decide to have it go somewhere else. It doesn't go directly, there. So anyway,
I guess that's my point, because I've only ever taken the insurance. So you've obviously overpaid the insurance, no money. My end of year is still the same exact amount of money as my
I think
payroll is.
I believe it is that when benefits were, so the only amount for you is in 2022, and I think in 2022 there was benefits were increased I can't remember if it was $300 a month or whatever. And ultimately, I think the insurance, whereas every other year for you, I think the insurance was more expensive than what was being received, the county was contributing, and so ultimately you were paying an additional amount from your check. Well, when the benefits were increased, now all of a sudden you weren't having to contribute anything from your check, and you were actually receiving a little bit as well at that point.
Okay.
And
I guess if the insurance didn't go up, but I've never received any money.
The insurance may have not gone up, but the benefit total,
That
I
you
think.
paid the insurance company, not to me.
Any excess that the county provides as a contribution above and beyond the insurance would go to you as a VBIT to cash.
That's what it is. So
That's
if
it.
you're getting 100 to pay for your benefits,
Right.
and you guys vote, and now you get 125, and the insurance still costs 100 for one pay period or whatever, 1 month, and next month it costs 125. This month you got 125, but it only costs 100. This resolution directs payroll to go put it over there. So you guys weren't caught in this by anything other than an accounting, when the benefit to you was voted to go up, and when the cost of the benefit that you were purchasing with the credit was less and then went up. And so that's why yours is static. And in some cases, again, if you look at this, I mean, there is some there's some really, you need to review the packet, and I guess we can meet next week, but hopefully we can come back with something, because some of this is still going on, increases that are interim for the, for the term, because you can establish it in the start of the term, but during the term, and it all hinges on the conversion, the decision, and that's what the comment in MRSC was about, as well as the timing of it. There's another MRSC article in there that you can see.
Okay.
So,
Well, I see that this increase, in my case is very minimal, but looking at some of the past commissioners and others, it's quite a substantial amount listed before me
yeah,
here.
I mean, and unfortunately, at least that's why we took our time to try to figure out to make sure this is what it is, because this is, quite frankly, is what it is. But it's because, again, I think because it's unconstitutional in its beginning, it's got, it has to be recovered. So but this is something for the board to take what we've presented on. This is just my opinion in the audit. And I've provided everything we used to bring such a topic up, especially when it hits, everyone as well as two past. So I don't know any of the other questions beyond the fact that, we've had experience with unconstitutional compensation here, and I know the county takes it seriously. And so we are presenting as much as we can, and we'll assist in the process to whatever extent.
Any other questions?
Mr. Beaton, couple questions. One, kudos for identifying this. It clearly was not something that anyone here was aware of, so good catch on the MRSC docket. You mentioned that you didn't see anything in the history about the coordination with civil legal. Have you had any coordination with legal on this package before giving it to us?
No, that's why I said this was obviously affecting all of you and at once. That's why.
No, I was just curious if you had run it by civil to get their input prior to presenting it, so.
No, that's why I recommend that no,
Sure.
I didn't. This is
Okay.
just this is an audit finding based on everything that's in the report.
No, I understand. And let's see, you obviously did coordinate with MRSC. Anybody else?
Didn't coordinate with MRSC. They send out a blog email that just comes into my email account, and I review them. They're a a lot of the electeds know about it, but it's a fantastic resource. So, and it's, as they say, they've they've got the view of the whole state and their own legal. And I know typically we've used MRSC before, but there was no coordination.
Yeah, MRSC is a great organization, you're right. Okay, I just thought that you had, because in page 1-2, there's a highlighted stretch, which it looks like was pulled from MRSC material, so no coordination with MRSC or legal, anybody else? I'm just trying to get a scope of who
No,
are.
like I said, that highlighted part was to bring to attention in the two articles. There's actually two different articles. The one that, that took us all the way back to 2016. There was another article from 22 of this year that basically said salaries for elected officials need to be passed prior to the election. And unfortunately, the 2016 resolution for this portion of the payroll was passed after the election. And so that's where we got into this thinking, okay, we need to make some recommendations to change how we're doing some things. And it turned into this, which is.
Yeah. Anybody else? Well, let me just ask it differently. Who'd you coordinate with outside your office? Anybody?
No one.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
So this would be in reference to a few months ago when we raised the contribution for the county for the county employees' insurance. Is that correct? So I'm just trying to understand how, whereas I've never collected any money outside of, I've always taken the insurance. So I guess that's, and Mr. Didier obviously is only taking the insurance as well.
Yes.
That's why our two amounts are the same, is because of what we passed a few months ago, where we increased the county's employees.
It does relate to when the county contributions change, but also,
Which was a few
but also
months
it
ago.
is a function of how much the insurance costs for you as well. Like in 2023, the cost of insurance, I don't have the numbers right on me, but the cost of insurance rose substantially. So you'll see in 2023, for you, Commissioner Mullen, there wasn't any amount listed. There's a chart that kind of summarizes so a lot of the information on, it's got a 3 and then a circled 3 on it that summarizes some of the information. And as you can see on that, for you in 2023, there wasn't any question amounts. And ultimately, that's because the insurance was, I want to say like $1,500 a month that was being contributed, but obviously your insurance was costing more than that. And so, and so then because of that, then there's not anything. But if we were contributing $1,500 and the insurance only costs $1,400, well, then you would get that extra $100 in as pay based on the way the county does it right now.
Based on the resolution.
And so that chart right there, I can give it just kind of a brief summary of how that works. On that chart there, there's the chart at the top, and it's color coded as far as there's the section in like orange and blue and green and yellow. So all of those are color coded to. So on the left-hand side, you see amounts that's how much was received. And then as you go to the right, if it moves to the right under question payments, then that's when it's actually being listed, like on the very first page that Mr. Beaton provided to you. So like on that very first part, on that orange, it talks about that Resolution 2016-426 was approved on November 21st, which was after the election that year. And since it was approved after the election, then that amount moves over to the right as a question payment. But if there was someone that came in midterm, for example, Commissioner Didier started in 2019, and so that section in blue for Commissioner Didier does not move over to the right because he came in term when that was already in place, and so it doesn't move over. But if ultimately you voted on something that happened, then then it would move over to the right. And so ultimately, it's color-coded and gives rationale as to why it moves over. All of the payments are listed to the left. Only those that are being questioned move over to the right. And as I said, they're all color-coded and details as to why or why not they move over into the question category.
I see two former commissioners are listed in this too. What is the, what's their predicament?
We can't answer that. We just took the rules that we had based on what we found, and we put the information into it. So that would be a question for, I pay attention to this stuff, and I don't know, you'll have to find out what the process is to, my understanding is it's like the Blake decision or whatever, is that if was not right from its very beginning, it has to be either paid back or given back, whichever side of it. It's all legal. So that's why we put it here, and I tell you that your board has all the power. We'll take in all the advice from whoever and decide what's the right thing to do with the situation.
So I think first off, we need to get a legal opinion. So legal needs to look at this.
Sure, that's where I would go. That's why I brought up the fact that, there's obviously legal, there's, some very informed legal and policy at MRSC, but we have our own attorneys here in Franklin County that advise you, so that's where I would go if I was in your chair.
Well, it definitely needs some legal review. Like I said, the amount that says I was overpaid is very minuscule, but the other commissioners are, other than Mr. Didier, they're quite large. And how come it doesn't affect the other electeds?
So on page, it's part of the Constitution. It's basically, I think on the table of contents, I threw in the two, number 8 has the two applicable. And then we got to remember, I'm an auditor, and so this is just the information, so you know how my thought process walks me all the way up here. But it's very clear that it turns on the ability of an elected official to increase their own pay. So it does not impact, none of the elected officials had voted on it. So it does not, and in fact, if we set this up properly, it is constitutional. It's just the manner in which we're set up here is not.
Well, I think the intent when we voted on this a few months ago was to raise the contribution for the employees, and that's what we were looking after.
Sure. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to present this here as opposed to having it leak out.
So you'll send this up to legal?
No, you will. I've done everything. I've handed it to you.
Well, I only got one copy.
Well, we'll figure it out, and we've got an electronic copy, and I'll make it available. It's just as the elected auditor, this is my role, and so even what we've got here is a product from our function and can be reviewed and part of the discussion. But yes, I've got an electronic copy or paper copy, but it's.
So as chairman, Mike, will you make sure that
Yes, I'll work with Matt on this.
Yeah, and I hope we can work with Tim, but we need to, some of it was interim, like the stuff from last year that affected you guys is still in place, and we need the authority to stop it.
We need to redo the resolution.
Yeah, that's what our recommendation is, yes.
Maybe we'll look into that, present that
And
next
you can
meeting.
present it or talk about it next week, or
Yeah.
hopefully with as quickly as you can, we can, given everybody's schedules, I don't know.
Any other questions? All right. Is there any other elected or department heads that want to come forward at this time? All right. Seeing none, administration office business, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, this next order of business is a discussion to determine the two Franklin County Commissioners for the Health Board and amending the Franklin County Board Organization Chart for 2023. So I've got plenty of information on this. I really did my homework, so I did want to tee it up for the Commissioners to give some context, because I spoke.
Excuse me, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm going to save us all a lot of time. Between last Tuesday's meeting, And this week's meeting, I was at the Legislative Steering Committee for Wasac last Wednesday, Thursday, and was advised of my reappointment for another year as chair of Legislative Steering Committee. And those meetings overlap directly with the Board of Health, so there's no way that I can physically do both, even if I chose to. So I'm not able to serve on the Board of Health. I thought I was last week because I thought my term was ending. I've been advised otherwise. So option one, I think, is the one that has Mr. Didier and Mr. Mullen on the Board of Health, and that's the only one that I can support.
Absolutely.
For that
That
reason.
makes things pretty easy. So.
Well, that's why I interrupted, because I didn't want
no
you to have to
problem.
go
No,
through a lot
that
of-
saves me some breath. But certainly if you guys have any questions in the process, I really dug in and found out a lot of answers, but certainly does make it more simple.
Are you good with that,
Yeah,
Commissioner Mullin?
I'm good
Okay,
with that.
I think we got that resolved, so it is option one?
Essentially, it would be the decision to pick 2 commissioners to serve on the Benton Franklin Health District Board.
2 from each county and the 3 that
Yeah,
were...
so Benton County is discussing their 2 commissioners that they'll select today. So ultimately, the Benton Franklin Health District Board wanted us to discuss that, which we just did. So that solved that problem of, which commissioners would likely serve if 3 wanted to. So with only 2 being able to serve from Franklin, then 2 will have to serve from Benton. So I think the one thing that'll be interesting how it plays out, and not sure how much you guys are in the weeds on this, but the tribal member has not been selected for the board. So what ultimately will happen, it's going to be a 4-3 board, and when I spoke to Janae, it doesn't look like the tribal member will be selected in the likely future, and they hope to get someone else in there, but that's probably not going to happen for another year or so. So at least for the meantime, it will remain a board of 4-3. And those 3 would be appointees, along with the 4 commissioners.
Yeah, yes, we've been working on that since the first of the year. So with that, I'll move to approve Resolution 2023-115 with version 1, which would place myself and Mr. Didier on the Health Board with Mr. Peck as the alternate.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-115. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Next, we'll move down to the discussion to create a social media platform.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. And I've been working with IS on this to create social media platforms. We're going to create a Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram page. I've created a blog site, which I can write to. So I think this will give us an opportunity to really create our own narrative and really create some great content that is positive. And I hope to get our county employees involved and to highlight them quite a bit. Also working on a social media policy, which I think is important, that I brought over with me from Franklin PUD that I had created over there, because I created our social media platforms when I was at Franklin PUD. So I think that gives us a good guide wire for participation, who can manage the sites, and certainly if employees, we can't stop them from engaging on social media platforms. We hope they speak positively about us, but I think it's important to have a policy and procedure in place for the social media platforms. Coordination right now is we're looking at it. IS is taking a look at it along with Civil and our attorneys, and then I have also sent each of you a copy of that for review, and I'll work with Dwayne on ultimately getting that codified. So, but I'm excited about it. And I think it'll give us a good direction on the communication front. So we haven't physically created them yet. I wanted to, at least if you had any questions for discussion before we would create those. But ultimately, we're going to create those probably in the coming days. So I just wanted to get it out there to the public and to the commissioners.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so that moves us down to public comment. Is there anybody else for public comment?
George Dockstetter, Self Landing Road. I'm going to bring up something again that I brought up a month or so ago. Besides the annual road budget, I suggested that you raise the sales tax, the 1/10 of 1%, which you're allowed to do, and put that with a sunset provision and put that into a special fund above and beyond the road budget, just to chip and seal some of these roads that are most critical out there, that we get the most complaints about. And if you do, that would raise roughly $2.5–3 million a year, and we could fix some of these serious problems we have with the roads out there and put a sunset provision on it so it goes away in 10 years or 5 or whatever is decided by the board. But it would help solve some of the problems, and I think you would find everybody from the orchard workers, asparagus pickers, to farmers, to salespeople, to truckers would support that if it was going dedicated to improving some of our roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Something that I taught my children is this: he who pays has all the say. That is something that I told them. There's something you want, then you pay for it. If we start raising taxes to pay for other people's roads, property that they now own, it no longer will be theirs. They will no longer have the county can come in and impose all sorts of requirements to those people that live on that road. We're seeing this already, and this is what I have been discussing over the last couple of months, is that the county now is coming in and telling farmers to go from the county road that you own and that you paid to have paved, you now have to get a permit to be able to farm your ground. And the same thing is happening, and if you don't get the temporary permit every year, then you have to pay to have a concrete pad from the asphalted road to your gravel road access to your farm or to your driveway. And of course, they say it's grandfathered in, but the problem is once you start charging taxes and you start paying those taxes and the county passes that to pave your road, now they are going to have all sorts of other requirements that can happen. And once you pass a tax, you can say it can sunset. It never sunsets. I've never seen that happen. They find another reason to keep it going and even to raise it. So we are being taxed to death. I heard Commissioner Peck say that the gas tax is lower, I don't know why we're receiving less, because our gas taxes are going up. I guess the state is withholding more. I don't know what's going on, but everyone should be responsible for their property, for their road, what they want to put on it. Of course, they go through the county, and the county does it, but the person who owns that property pays for the product being put on the road that they own. So that's how it's done, and it's worked for, since Franklin County's been a county, so.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick point of
Thank you.
clarification. The state of Washington's gas tax revenues are down due to increases in usage of electric vehicles. So the revenue in is down, therefore the distribution to counties is down.
Michael Lips. So I'm hearing a lot of differences in tax opinion. For a lot of years now, our tax dollars haven't gone to maintaining our roads. That money should already be there. That being said, if we do have to raise a little bit to cover that, I would say that it's a good idea. I do want to address something that was said a little while ago by Jason McGarry. He did say that we don't farm up against Dayton Road, and that is false. I think truth is incredibly important in a discussion such as this. And I thought that was very important to mention. Another thing I would like the record to show, as I was talking about the maintenance of these roads that we've been dealing with, Craig Erdman, our county engineer, could not look me in the eye one time as I was speaking. I personally think that's indicative of shame of how he's been treating this, but that is a personal opinion. I also just want to say a blanket statement. This is debating issues, and I apologize if I've ruffled any feathers of any of the neighbors here or watching online. This is debating issues, and I'm standing for what I believe is true. I hope I haven't hurt any of my relationship with any of my neighbors or anybody that I know, but I just do want to appreciate the time to speak here and the time that the voice of the people is heard. Thanks.
Thank you.
With regard to the permit, it's more of a user permit. If you want to go fishing, you pay a fishing license. It pays for many things such as wildlife, personnel, and restocking and all of that. The user permit, I've talked to several farmers. They don't balk at paying for repairing the shoulder of the road with a user permit to enter their farm. And it is not something that ruffles feathers out there. I'm a little bit mystified why that has caused so much consternation. Together, the city and the county pay for those roads because we all use them. The shoulder needs help sometimes. The county is directed to find a way to pay for that. And I just do not like to see neighbors getting on after other neighbors with information. I truly hope that this is something that consolidates in a peaceful manner. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Is there anybody on the phone?
No one is on the phone, Commissioner.
Okay.
So from what Mr. Erdman stated in this meeting is that a lot of farmers were getting permits. Then he came back and said, no, only 3 farmers were. And then he came back and said, no, only 1 farmer was. So we paid to have the road paved. The road is our property. Then, after we paid to have it paved, our property taxes were raised to pay for the maintenance. So we're already paying for it. To ask us to get a user permit to go from our road onto our property is crazy. That is the point, and that's the consternation. It's not getting after neighbors, since I'm still trying to find out which farmer is the one that is getting this permit 3 times, because we've been farming out there for years, and I've talked to other farmers, they've never heard of such a thing. So that's the point. So the user permit thing was designed for construction work. When you build a house or a building in town or even in a county development, you have to have a temporary gravel road, because the heavy equipment that they use to build your structure would damage any driveway or parking lot that you would put in there. It's always the last thing put. So the temporary permits have always been for construction until you can put in your permanent driveway. It has nothing to do with farming. And that's the point.
Thank you. Nobody on the phone? Nobody else for public comment? I think we will take a 5-minute recess before we go into our executive session.
Yes, Commissioner, we do have a need for an executive session. This is under RCW 42.30.110, Section 1, subsection I, for potential litigation matters. So.
Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll go into the executive session.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification, the agenda says that this is under 1B, real estate acquisition or site selection. Do we know which it is?
This was an additional one that we added. That's not on the physical agenda, but for timing's sake, we have to move this one up. So forgive me for not clarifying that.
So you're going to do another one first?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank
sir.
you. Yep, no problem.
So we'll have 2 executive sessions. We'll now go into recess for 5 minutes. We'll come back at 12:55. Okay, we've come out of our recess. We're back to regular session. Mr. Gonzalez, will you take us into executive session, please?
Yes, sir. We are going back into executive session again under RCW 42.30.110, Section 1, subsection I, for litigation or potential litigation.
And for how long?
About 15 minutes. Let's give it 15, and we may come out a bit earlier.
15-minute, and we are going in at 1:19. We'll recess now to executive session.
Just wanted to. Hold on.
11:19. And then we got one more.
How much time on the next one, so I could tell people outside?
20 minutes.
Don't need me for that, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've come out of executive session. We're back to regular session. And Mr. Gonzalez, would you please take us into the next executive session?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you. We do have a need for an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, Section 1, subsection B, real estate acquisition or site selection for approximately 20 minutes.
Okay, so at this time, we will recess into executive session. We can kill that computer too.
Definitely pick someone who's commercial, though.
Right.
Got to get the door open. All right, we've come out of executive session. We're back to regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the county?
Nope.
Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.